I'm Tamara Thomas, editor-in-chief of UrbanHealthToday.com, part of the DocWire family of medical news sites, and I want to thank you for tuning in to Urban Health Weekly. Our goal each week is to keep you informed of the latest in health and medical news right from today's headlines. It's time to empower yourself with open conversations about your medical care with news that matters to you. So are you ready? Let's get started. People are aware, I hope, of the baby formula shortage across the country.
That feels like a panic.
Well, I mean, if you can't feed your baby, that is definitely a panic.
What is more panic inducing than that? Jeez.
My God. And so, Lou, before I start in on what I was going to talk about the history of it, but do you want to give a recap of, since you've been following this very closely?
Okay.
From
Well,
the beginning?
I'm going to start out with ancient history, usually the way I do.
Right.
The last time there was a baby shortage problem in the world, which was in China.
Baby formula shortage.
It
wasn't a shortage. What happened is they were not using formula. They were substituting melamine.
Right.
Oh, I remember that. That was awful.
And babies were getting very sick and dying. And then they shot them and put them to death.
Yeah, the reason you get to...
Oh my God.
The reason you get to shortages, is that, there are problems with the product.
Right.
So I'm just saying the last time there was a product problem was in China, and the people that knew about it and tried to cover it up or did nothing about it and didn't take immediate steps, they were shot.
Right.
So that's how seriously people take a problem with baby formula. The last thing you want to do is endanger an infant.
Yeah, and this is a nation of like one babies, and the people's like one and only babies were dying.
Wow.
So just to put it in perspective, this is a very touchy situation that should never get this. So what happened is in September of last year, you had a few babies get sick. A couple of babies get sick. 2 babies? And 2 or 3 got sick, and 2 passed away.
Oh my God.
And so it wasn't a lot, given how many, the product was Similac, which is Abbott. And
Abbott Labs, okay.
Abbott Labs. And what happened there, basically, since the one common thread in all the babies that got sick was that it was Similac. Now, on one side, you could say, okay, that's a smoking gun. On the other side, Similac is the number one, and there's about 50% market share. So 50% of all kids or babies are taking Similac. The next biggest one is Enfamil.
Wow.
So just to say that they were on Similac doesn't mean that it was a problem. Now, let's go a step further.
Here he goes with his big pharma. All right, go ahead.
There was an inspection. There was an inspection in the plant.
He's defending them already.
No, I'm not.
Damn. All right. Okay.
They could find no direct. They looked at the batches. They looked at what the babies were drinking. They could not find a direct link toward that said that this contamination was a
direct result of the Similac.
There, it is also possible that people did not use proper hygiene. Not blaming the mothers, but sometimes bottles sit for a long time. They don't get washed properly. You think you press one cycle and you didn't press one cycle. Anything can happen.
Right.
So there's that, but let's put that in the parking lot.
Well, no, because I remember I used to be part of a mommy group. Yeah. And what happened was one of the mommies, her baby got really sick, her son, and she had to take him to the emergency room.
Oh.
And when they examined the baby, it turns out that she gave the baby the wrong bottle. She had given the baby an old bottle. So she didn't empty the old bottle and stuff like that. And so she probably made a bottle, got the bottles mixed up, and gave the baby the wrong bottle. And the baby got very, very sick, and she had to take the baby to the emergency room.
Right.
And thank goodness he survived, and they acted quickly and they found out in time.
Right. So,
but these things do happen. So go ahead.
That said, when the inspections did take place,
but we don't know the details of what happened to those babies. And at the end of the day,
they could. The only thing we could not do is find they looked at the formula and could find nothing wrong within that formula.
Uh-huh.
That said, all of these babies, were from Abbott,
Mhm.
and when there was an inspection in the plant, there were some safety and cleanliness
That's the
um,
Sturgis, Michigan
right,
plant.
right.
Okay.
problems that happened. So the FDA said, well, and it was pretty much voluntary too. The last thing that Abbott wants to do is have like some major,
Lawsuit,
scandal
yeah.
and lawsuit and really lose their business, because after that there's no coming back.
Yeah.
Who knows
Right.
if there is coming back after this, but
Mhm.
they've been pretty diligent about it. They shut down production. They cleaned up everything. However, when they shut down production, they shut down production nationwide. So that's
Oh,
Yeah,
now
so
we're having
they didn't just shut down Michigan, they shut down all of the plants. This was a voluntary on their
they
part?
just shut it all down. They wanted to look at their manufacturing. FDA intervened, and this is what happens when the FDA intervenes. FDA intervened and said, we're going to shut you down for 90 days at least, and we'll tell you when you can start up again. The plants were clean, ready to go, but our FDA took a lot of time in saying, okay, you're ready to get going.
wait. So was the FDA 90 days, was that punitive or was that a safety measure?
We're going to take a timeout, make sure that everything is fine, and
Okay.
we're going to shut you down for 90 days so you can do these instructions, blah, blah, blah.
But did they say we're gonna shut down the Michigan plant, or did they say we're gonna
Everything.
we're gonna shut you down across the nation?
Across the nation.
Okay, so what was the voluntary part then?
Well, at
Was
first,
it a voluntary recall, or what was the voluntary?
the Abbott did a voluntary recall of the product.
Oh,
It
wow.
started out as voluntary. They included the FDA. The FDA said, well, let's shut down the nation until we say it's okay, until we say go.
Even though they didn't find evidence of wrongdoing or
There
unsanitary
there
conditions
were safety violations. There
in the
were
other ones outside of the Michigan plant?
once you do these reviews, you're gonna find all sorts of stuff going on.
Mm,
So everything was cleaned. Procedures had to be followed. There were procedures that were not being followed.
mhm.
That's par for the course. That happens. It happened with the COVID vaccines, and
Right.
it happens with any major drug
Right,
or any major product that's being mass produced.
right.
Especially in this environment where you got people in and out, you got sometimes the regular crew is not there,
Mhm.
labor shortages. Some of
Right.
it they blamed on just supply and late. When you're talking about supply chain is not only the truck that takes it from point A to point B. It's not all just powder. Some of it has to be refrigerated properly. It has to get from the factory to the store shelf at a decent time. There's a lot of things that happen.
Mm.
So there were some violations found. Again, none of them linked to the death directly, but they were violations that had to be cleaned up.
Right.
Okay.
Enter bureaucracy. There is government bureaucracy. Enter the fact that the new trade agreements that we have prohibited us from importing it from Canada for whatever reason.
Abbott is also in Canada?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Abbott
see.
has
So they
a
couldn't even
huge-
call in any
They
from,
couldn't call in and say,
hey, can you send us some from our Canada factories?
yeah, can you send us? They couldn't cross the border.
Oh, wow.
So we got left with Enfamil, then start panic buying, because every parent knows there's a shortage. So if God forbid you see an Enfamil on the shelf, you buy. Hey, look,
You better grab it.
Yeah.
Insure also got shut down as a result of this.
Yeah, and Elecare and Alimentum, which is
Yep.
for
Oh, because they're all at the same factories?
Yep.
They
Same
make
factory.
Oh,
nutritional supplements for for very young and the very
Yeah.
ill and the very old. Yeah.
It's pretty much the same product, just a little different. So anyway, there was a thing. So whenever I saw Ensure on a shelf, I would literally, because I've said it before, I care for 2 aging parents. I would
yeah, a lot of seniors take Ensure.
Oh yeah, I would literally fill up my shopping cart with Ensure
Wow.
and just purchase is every Ensure bottle that I could find.
Oh man.
And I would lead to the shortage because whatever Ensure was there is gone. But I would go to 7, 8 stores.
Oh my gosh, you were stockpiling that Ensure.
Go to no, I wouldn't find it. You go to CVS, no Ensure.
Oh, you weren't getting it.
No Ensure. You couldn't get it. Then all of a sudden I'd see it in the supermarket. And you know, that mentality takes over. It's kind of like toilet paper during COVID.
Oh yeah.
Like you start like in your mind running through these scenarios that, oh
And
my
you just
God,
clear the shelf and take
what
it
if I
all
need
because
to poo and there's no toilet paper? What am I gonna do? You know,
Yeah.
what happens then? You know, and
How that hunter-gatherer like thing clicks in.
yeah, so that would click in, and all of a sudden I would buy it. So people started hoarding. Once the hoarding started, you can't get the supply. Forget it. It's like the perfect storm. There's nothing on the shelves, and the
Wow.
FDA was taking its time. So after like the
so after the news coverage
after news coverage
and asking the
chairmans
FDA,
and-
well, what happened? I remember seeing recently the FDA was on, I think, CNBC, and they were asking about the issue. And the guy says, well, it's not an issue of supply chain, it's an issue of getting them to the shelves.
Yeah. And look, what happened, I think the final change was Pete Buttigieg was on all the network tour.
Mm-hmm.
And he
That's
went
the
on,
transportation secretary, by the way, people.
yeah, and basically the supply chain problems have been delegated to him. So he did one station and it went great. They gave him a lot of softball questions. He answered them, no harm, no foul. Then he went on the financial news station, and it didn't go so well. They pretty much held his feet to the fire and said, well, what's taking so long? And he really didn't have an answer. Then he, I take my hat off to him. He goes to the left and to the right of stations. Then he went out to Fox. And there he was skewered.
Wow.
like, they really laid it into. So, after that afternoon, all of a sudden the FDA
Announces the consent decree.
said, you know what, I guess you could start again. To think that, Pete going on all these stations and not having, it's not a coincidence. I really think that as soon as he got off, he said, get me the phone here. It's like,
This was embarrassing.
He
We've
said,
got
what
to do
the
something.
F, guys? Come on, is there any?
Wow.
It's like, get it started. Yeah.
And so we get into the part that I'm about to read, which is the consent decree. So recently, baby formula producer Abbott announced it had reached a deal with Food and Drug Administration, laying out a path to reopen a factory in Sturgis, Michigan, that shut down amid recalls earlier this year, contributing to the current shortage. In a statement, the company confirmed that it has entered into a consent decree with the FDA, in which the agency and company agree on the benchmarks required to resume production and ensure the facility meets safety guidelines. If a court approves the agreement, the Michigan site could restart in 2 weeks. The site would initially produce specialty metabolic formulas, Elecare and Alimentum, followed by Similac and eventually other formulas, food and drug officials said. Our number one priority is getting infants and families the high quality formulas they need, and this is a major step toward reopening our Sturgis facility so we can ease the nationwide formula shortage. We look forward to working with the FDA to quickly and safely reopen the facility, said Chairman and CEO Robert B. Ford. We know millions of parents and caregivers depend on us, and we're deeply sorry that our voluntary recall worsened the nationwide formula shortage. I like how they're falling on the sword for this one. We will work hard to re-earn the trust that moms, dads, and caregivers have placed in our formulas for more than 50 years. In a statement issued by the Department of Justice, Attorney General Merrick Garland said, the actions we are announcing today will help to safely increase the supply of baby formula for families. The Justice Department will vigorously enforce the laws ensuring the safety of our food and essential consumer products. And we will work alongside our partners across government to help make sure those products are available to the American people. In a CNN interview, FDA Commissioner Dr. Robert Califf had presented a somewhat rosy timeline for reopening the facility. He had predicted that once a deal was struck, the factory could reopen and resume producing formula within 2 weeks and be back to normal a few weeks later. However, Abbott said things will not move quite that fast. From the time Abbott restarts the site, it will take 6 to 8 weeks before product is available on shelves, the
Wow.
company noted in its statement. Once it does, Abbott says it will start producing the formulas. Additionally, the FDA announced increased flexibilities on the importation of baby formula from foreign countries to help alleviate the shortage. I really hate that we've come to this in America of all places. You know, how did we get here? I mean, you just explained how we got here, but
Yeah, by the way, that was the best explanation of the reason for the baby formula shortage I've heard. It was very clear.
yes, thank you for that. That's well, in the meantime, you know, here's what you can do to keep your baby healthy and fed. Shop beyond the grocery store. You may be surprised to find a better supply at convenience store chains, local pharmacies, and baby specialty stores in your area. Manufacturer websites often have information on where to find stock, so you can usually even check before you make the drive. If all else fails, you can also order infant formula directly from the manufacturer. Most manufacturers seem to have full stock and can even offer discounts on subscription orders to ensure you never run out. Ask your pediatrician for assistance. According to Adam Barcella, a pediatrician at Northwest Medical Central DuPage Hospital in Winfield, Illinois, your own pediatrician will likely have a host of solutions for you should you be unable to find your preferred brand of baby formula. Your pediatrician should be able to triage and troubleshoot for you, he says. If your baby requires a specialized formula, your pediatrician can call in for medical requests to get them exactly what they need. Barcelo also says that most pediatricians' offices can help in the event of an emergency. Try a new baby formula brand. As new moms know, there is a lot of brand loyalty when it comes to formula. Changing baby formulas can be scary and cause varying issues if it's done too rapidly. But know that trying a new formula can be done safely. According to Barcella, you may actually find a brand that you like even better than the one you previously pledged loyalty to. It's important to consult your pediatrician about how to make the transition easier on your baby's delicate digestive system, but that doesn't mean that transitioning to another brand isn't an option to explore. Talk with your baby's pediatrician about options and alternatives, which they can guide you through. Start your baby on solid foods. You should continue feeding with formula until your baby turns 1 year old, but if your child is over 6 months old, you can start to supplement nutrition with some solids. The CDC recommends that you introduce one solid food at a time to monitor for food intolerance and allergies. A good place to start is with fortified cereal, mashed bananas or avocado, or even well-cooked and pureed meat, poultry, and beans. Give breast milk a try. While we are aware that many families use formula because they either need to supplement, can't breastfeed, or prefer not to, your own breast milk isn't the only option for your baby. There are breast milk banks that can provide safe, pasteurized breast milk for your baby. Informal breast milk sharing, even between friends and community members, is not recommended for health and safety reasons, so it's best to consult a regulated breast milk bank. And never make your own baby formula. There has been an uptick in online searches for how to make baby formula, but all experts
I bet.
this is one thing you should never feed your baby. Do not dilute baby formula. If you're running low on supply, you may be tempted to dilute the formula you have on hand. Barcella cautions caregivers to never dilute breast milk. Extra water can be dangerous to babies. Diluting formula or breast milk can interfere with an infant's ability to absorb nutrients. This can cause seizures, brain damage, and, in extreme cases, death. Skip the baby formula substitutes. While it may be tempting to try goat milk, how dare they pan goat milk, or other milk alternatives in place of baby formula, know that unless your child is old enough to drink cow's milk and you are looking for an alternative, it's not considered safe to swap cow or goat milk for formula. The concentration of proteins in each can cause severe dehydration in babies and can result in hospitalization. I don't know. Some of this doesn't sound well thought out, but it's what the doctor says. And so we're going to go with what the doctor says. I'm just wondering, if you live in a medical desert, how do you coordinate with a pediatrician to get
Oh man.
what if you don't have a car? How do you do that? What if you don't have a credit card? How do you get in touch with a manufacturer to have you go to the website and have that shipped to you? What if you don't have
Who coordinates a breast milk bank?
well, what if you don't have a breast milk bank in your area?
Yeah.
And then what's the fee for that? Is that free? How does that work? There's a lot of things that I think are not fully thought out in this. This makes a lot of assumptions about people's abilities to get their hands on things. But okay, I mean, we're gonna go with that, and we're gonna assume that you have a car, that you have a credit card, that you have great working internet, and that you have a pediatrician. And if you have all of those things, then this sounds great. But if you don't have all of those things, then what the hell are you going to do? Because you still need to feed your baby. I'm just wondering. Any thoughts?
Not to mention the panic induction, being panic induced with sleep deprivation and being like a new parent and all that stuff that goes on. Good God. And then you have to be able to be organized enough to make all this happen. My hat's off to all moms right now. I wonder how many people are feeling pressured to try breastfeeding again after they've stopped. Like, how does that production work? I mean,
that's the other thing. What if you go to work and you don't have a pump to pump milk to leave?
Yes, and pumps aren't cheap. I mean, I know you can rent it, but still, you need all the accessories.
That's not cheap either.
Right. Wow.
Yeah.
Your thoughts, Lou?
I got a lot of thoughts here. So I'll start with the first one. Is in this environment that we're living in, call it the post-pandemic phase or whatever, recovery phase, the new shortage phase, whatever you want to call this phase, it's good to have a plan B and a plan C. And I think you got to start early on with your child to say, hey, look, if my breast milk dries up, if my formula dries up, by drying up means that it's no longer being manufactured and I don't have access to it. What are my alternatives? And make sure that your child is raised in
I think this country should
format.
I think this country should really look into expanding breast milk banks, and it should and lactation specialists and hospitals should really encourage more breast milk banks and educate people about the importance of human milk for human babies.
Yeah.
Have they been advanced in the last few years? Are there more breast milk banks than there used to be? Because many years ago, 10, 12 years ago, I don't remember that being such, like you had to be connected with the hospital to get access to a breast milk bank back then. And also it never occurred to me when I had my little guy, like that, there would ever be a shortage of formula. Like I breastfed as long as I could, but it was difficult. And so it never occurred to me. So this is a whole new world. Like, and it's just smart. Have a plan B and a plan C.
Well, I breastfed, but I did not use Similac or Enfamil. I did not use any cow-based milk formula. I did use goat milk-based formulas, which I did discuss it with my pediatrician at the time. I didn't just do this on my own. Right. I did create a formula. I mean, I didn't create it off the top of my head. I found it, but I brought it into her, and she looked at the nutrients, and she approved it. The only thing she didn't like about it was that it was a little low on iron, but where she was developmentally at that point, her rationale was, well, she still has, I think she was under 6 months old at the time. And she had said, look, she still has stores from before I gave birth to her. So she was okay with it. But I mean, I could see a scenario where she said, okay, well, you've got to give her some polyvisol or something like that. But, this was a discussion that I had with the pediatrician. I didn't just take on my own and do it. And I did create I used a recipe and I created a goat milk formula for her that she was very happy with, and she thrived. So I didn't use Similac and infant milk, so I can't really relate to that. But I think I would be out of my mind if it were a situation, because at one point my milk just stopped. I forgot
Yeah.
what it was. She gave me some stupid piece of advice and I followed it, and I should have followed my instinct, and then next thing I know, I couldn't pump for a day or something. It was something she
Oh yeah, yeah. And did you ever get mastitis? Like I had double mastitis. It was constant. And I only managed to breastfeed like 18 weeks. Like I really wanted to go longer, but I just couldn't do it.
yeah.
It felt like you're tied to that pump, by the way. Like it was like you
It was
couldn't get
such a
anything done. You were
relief.
24/7 pumping. That's what I remember
It
anyway.
was such a relief when you did it. It was like, oh, where's that pump?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And then I would just stockpile all the milk. And she always had milk. She always had her little bottle of milk, and I always felt very good that she had her milk. But when that happened, so I'm just imagining, I'm a parent, I can't breastfeed. These people are telling me to try the breast milk. If I could breastfeed, I would, but I can't, you a-hole. And I'm out of
Right.
formula, and I can't find formula. I'd lose my mind. I'd absolutely
Yeah.
lose my mind.
I also remember how much formula, like, because I think we did Similac, and I just remember how much formula, because you can't save the once you can't you have to be careful with your Similac. You can't, or your formula. You can't, like you were saying, you have to make sure it's not old formula. So
Right.
there probably was a fair amount wasted, where like, okay, we already prepared that and we didn't use it, so it's got to go, and I'll make sure.
Right, because you have to use the bottle by a certain time. You can't just
So
sit.
now I worry for parents who are like trying to like absolutely ration it and,
I
maybe like,
hope people aren't trying to dilute. I really,
right.
or giving the baby less milk and stuff like that. I hope communities are pooling their assets together to help babies.
Another thought that this brings to mind, and we're going to be covering this more and more in the future, is these virtual, uh, 360 degrees physician type portals, or that use AI and give you all sorts of resources and all of that. More and more parents are going to be needing that 360 type relief. First of all, we have a pandemic, and this pandemic that's almost over. But I guess they call the term
Tell that to the
endemic.
virus.
Yeah, well, I'll tell that to the TV people. I want to keep it going. They're getting great
Tell that
ratings.
to the virus. But
But I said that it's not going anywhere. It's just there. It seems that it's going to stay there, and you'll get it 3, 4, 5 times. But what is happening is, who's got time to go to the pediatrician's office and sit there all day? Especially if the stuff that you can cover can be covered over a Zoom call, or over a phone call, or over a screen, over the screen, which is more and more the way it's going to be doing. Number two, there's a lot of resources that you need in coordination of care. That's more and more needed. If your pediatrician knows of, let's say, a local store that has it, or has these resources, or can suggest things, there's a lot of tools there that you go. So more and more, the attractiveness of having virtual care sites, and care sites that are AI, or care sites that just deal with one type of function, are becoming more and more popular. Think of it as Peloton has taken over, and my X Fitness have taken over the workout scenario. Why? Because they have this wide range of workouts that you do, and it's your resource and all that. Is it the only place you can get it? No, nobody's telling you it's the only place, but it's a very convenient place. It'll work. There's Zoom. People use that, and I think more and more care is going to go that way. But in addition to having your teleconference, you're going to need parent resources.
Well, you know what? I'm glad that you said that, but I'm going to take it a step further, or maybe a step back, and say that mommy groups. There need to be, I think more mommy groups would be the answer. So, for example, if I were still part of the mommy group that I was in, and this was happening during our time. I can't imagine a scenario where we're not sharing with each other.
Yeah.
I've got I found here in New York, I've got a store that's got some, let me ship you each a couple of bottles of Similac. Do you know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah, I bet that's going on.
Village approach. We need more of that, where we look out for one another. I think that's kind of what we need right now, where we pool assets and we help one another. And maybe that sounds pie in the sky, and that's not the society we live in anymore. But I really think that's kind of what we need if we're going to go the online route, is that we really need to form these digital villages to help each other get through these kinds of times.
Well, in your first story, about your experience, if there was a coordination of care and you had a way of bringing in all these people together on an extended channel, it doesn't even have to be live. If everybody could have contributed and been on there and been on the same page.
Well, they were all talking to each other. They just weren't talking to me.
Okay.
And I don't think they included the lead physician in that
No,
in that
that's
chat.
not a 360
They were talking
right.
I think that they thought that it was a 360.
Yeah, the 360 amongst them.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
No, it has to include the patient. The
Right.
patient's voice has to be included there.
Absolutely.
And that has to happen. So more and more, we have to find ways to use technology to facilitate and to help us get to what we need to do, because it's no longer just go to your doctor and come back and it's over. There's a lot of things now that are going on. There's a lot of rolling things. Does my kid need a booster? Is there the baby formula? Is there this? And I'm just talking about pediatrician.
What is this rash? Yes, yeah.
Yeah, and it
Here's a picture of it.
It no longer happens at the institution. Things have gotten a little bit too complex.
Yeah.
What's covered by insurance? What is not covered by insurance? How can we look at, is there an alternative? All those questions need to be answered, and I think that technology can help.
I agree.
Get us closer, not fix it. This is not technology fixes it,
right?
But technology can help us get us closer.
Yeah.
To
that's true. All right, so we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be back because I definitely want to talk about the anti-Patty Lupone. And we're back, and we're almost out of time, but I just wanted to cover two things here. One is that the FDA has authorized COVID boosters for younger kids now. A third dose of the Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine is authorized for kids ages 5 to 11 years old. While it has largely been the case that COVID-19 tends to be less severe in children than adults, the Omicron wave has seen more kids getting sick with the disease and being hospitalized, and children may experience longer-term effects even following initially mild disease, said FDA Commissioner Robert Califf in a statement. Ooh, finally, I can get my little one a booster.
All right.
Numbers going up across the country. It's perfect timing. So that's great. And speaking of COVID, I just have to end with this one. Patti LuPone let an audience member have it about anti-masking.
Oh boy.
Film, TV, and Broadway star Patti LuPone had some sharp words for an audience member who was not wearing her mask properly. This happened at the Broadway show Company. They had a Q&A after the show when LuPone spotted the audience member wearing her mask improperly. Let's listen.
Put your mask over your nose. That's why you're in the theater. That is the rule. If you don't want to follow the rule, get the out. Who do you think you are if you do not respect the people that are sitting around you? You pay my salary. Chris Harper pays my salary. Who do you think you are? Do we have... Just put your mask over your nose.
Wow.
Let's applaud Patti LuPone for letting her have it. Can you believe this woman, I pay your salary. I'm entitled to expose my nose and potentially infect everyone around me because I paid to be here.
Wow.
Rock on, Patty Lupone. I'm here for it. I just wanted to share that with everyone.
Use that like next time somebody wants to.
Sheila, I have it.
Oh, man.
She said, who do you think you are?
With that Broadway projecting voice, all of it.
But that's not the first time. She's called people out before, but in any event, rock on, Patty.
Oh, my goodness. Bravo.
Go to urbanhealthweekly.com for the links to these articles. Remember, you only have one life and one body. So do your best to make it count so your years are full of life and full of health. Remember, information equals transformation. So small steps each day, and you will see a difference, I'm sure of it. That's all the time we have for today. You guys are great as always, and I will see you next week.
See you next week. Bye, guys.
Bye. Thanks for listening to Urban Health Weekly today. I hope you'll join me and my friends next week so you can stay informed and inspired to take control of your health. See you next time.